Hello, this video contains spoilers for every single Alien movie in the universe, so I strongly suggest that you watch pretty much all the Alien movies before jumping into this video. Also, there is swearing in this video. We are talking about a 18+ horror film franchise that contains gore and a lot of adult themes. This video is not recommended for children, it's recommended for adults. Please enjoy this video.
60 seconds to blast off. No
Video, Megatron.
We've forgotten the
Video.
It was all a bad dream. It was just all a bad dream.
Hello, we're Bloobcast. I'm Rob.
I'm Ewan.
And I'm James.
But the question is, why are we called Bloobcast?
Yes! First episode of 2021, welcome back.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Happy New Year everyone.
Happy New Year.
New
Wow.
Year.
We've survived. If there was any reason you wanted to go out into space, well, maybe this movie isn't the one to inspire you to do that, but last year certainly did. That was like, wasn't there that astronaut who went into space and everyone just collectively thought, oh, lucky bastard, like...
Yeah. So today we're talking about the Alien franchise.
This is a movie franchise which explains in very clear terms that you do not want to go into space, ever. Because it's the big science fiction horror franchise, I guess. It's the motherlode, the king, the queen of... the alien queen of science fiction horror. I'm very excited to be talking about it today.
It's one of the most talked about franchises of all time, probably.
Yeah, of course.
Easily, yeah.
I think right after Star Wars, I'd consider Alien my favourite film franchise.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'd probably put it over Star Wars for me. I know we're going to have some very interesting conversation about the various Alien films, but I just want to put it right out the bat, I love all of them. Also, we should make it clear, when I say all of them, I'm talking about the Quadrilogy, so the 4 films starring Sigourney Weaver. So Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection.
Those are the only 4 we're going to be discussing in this episode because...
we
don't want to...
others.
Well, we'll dedicate some oxygen to the other ones as well.
No more than like a minute for each.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very aware of the fact that there's apparently going to be a TV show next year or something, and I just feel like if we try to talk about all of the Alien stuff, our conversation will immediately be dated by next year. If we stick to the 4, we're in good, safe hands.
Want to talk about how we discovered Alien?
I'll go first because my story is interesting. I was about 4 when I discovered that the Alien franchise existed. No, hear me out. But it wasn't through the films. The memory's very fuzzy. I was in my local Woolworths.
Hey.
And I came across
R.I.P.
an action figure of Lieutenant Ripley from Aliens.
Nice.
I think it was my dad who pointed it out to me and said if I wanted the figure, I could buy it. Even though I had no idea who Ripley was, she was just some lady with a gun. I thought, oh, this is cool, I'll buy this.
Yeah.
So I didn't know there were films or anything. So my whole idea of what Alien was based on the back of the toy, which was there's like loads of soldiers with these cool guns.
Yeah.
And those are different variations of aliens. Yeah, it wasn't until I was 9 when I found out there were films. I was at my aunt's and uncle's house and I saw they had DVDs of Alien and Aliens. I didn't borrow them or anything because they were 18 and my parents were very strict about me and not watching films above 12A at the at the time.
Sure.
However, I think my uncle and my cousin, who's a couple of weeks older, but his parents did let him watch the films, were telling me about bits of the two films, and I was just, even though I'd never seen them, I was fascinated by them. The only other experience I had in my childhood of the films was in Universal Studios, no, not Universal, Disney Studios in Florida. There's a ride called the Great Movie Ride, and there was a segment of Alien, which is weird.
I've been on that ride. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Isn't it like there's a mob guy or something, like a gangster that takes over the car?
Yeah, it was a cowboy, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What in tarnation is this?
In 1979, director Ridley Scott and Sigourney Weaver made audiences believe that in space, no one can hear you scream.
Scream! I don't like the sound of that!
It's funny because now Alien is owned by Disney.
R.I.P.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't see the films until I was 18, so I bought the Quadrilogy with some money I got for my birthday that year. I definitely enjoyed at least the first two, but for some reason I wasn't super enamoured with them. It wasn't until I think a couple of years ago I really watched them, and I realised like how great at least the first two were. We'll get into more of the others later.
Sure. Yeah.
Although I have come around a bit more on Alien 3.
Alien 3 is great. Well, I'll go into it later, but yeah.
Well, I discovered Alien when I was younger by basically my dad talking about it. So I was really young at the time. I was probably about 9. But my dad basically loved these movies. He had the whole set. And basically, like Rob, you know, my parents were quite strict. I never watched any horror films until I was like 15. About 16, my dad sat me down and said, like, we're going to watch some sci-fi movies. And we went through Planet of the Apes, The Thing, and also the first 2 Alien movies. And that's kind of how I kind of got introduced to it, so as a 16-year-old. But then I got greeted to the whole franchise on a plane journey. I was much older, about like 19 or something like that, maybe 20. And it was from a plane journey back and forth to Malaysia. So I had all this time on this plane, and it had all the Alien films on there. So I watched through the theatrical cuts of Alien and Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, and Covenant. I didn't watch Prometheus though. I watched that in cinemas with my dad. So that's my story.
We should also point out that every Alien film in the quadrilogy has a special edition or a director's cut.
Yes.
So we have...
No, in Alien 3, it is not a director's cut.
No, well, that's what I meant. It's a special edition or whatever stupid name they came up.
The assembly cut.
The assembly cuts, that's it. Yeah, so we all, amazingly, we actually did all watch the different versions. So well done us, guys.
Really prepared for this one.
There's a lot to talk about with Alien. So I guess with my story, Alien has always kind of been present. I think it was because, like, at the time when I was growing up, like, Alien versus Predator was a thing.
I remember seeing the trailer for that. Yeah, I remember seeing posters for it when it was coming out.
I was about to say, there was, like, boss posters and stuff.
So stuff like that, I definitely was aware of it. And I was aware of, like, Alien in the same way that we all were, where it was like, okay, there's, like, some kind of weird, you know, monster with a weird face head thing with the double mouth tongue thing that it's got going. I think, and also, I really need to stress, I was a really scared kid. This will come as a shock to many, but I used to be terrified of horror films. I couldn't go anywhere near them. I was scared of Doctor Who, like, all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to watch, the Empty Child episodes of Doctor Who.
Are you my mummy?
I was traumatized by the Empty Child episode.
It's scary as an adult.
Yeah, I think that put me off Doctor Who for about 6 years or something.
I'm here.
But then around 15 or 16, I was hanging out with some friends of mine where we would watch movies. Like, you know, we would hang out at this friend's house and we would watch movies together. And I remember distinctly watching Alien there. And I feel like Alien might have been one of my first horror films that I properly watched. And being scared of it, but not like, you know, freaking out and just refusing to watch it.
Yeah.
So that was a really important thing for me because Alien left like a real impact. Like it really stuck in my brain. At some point I watched Aliens before uni and then like afterwards I have a USS Marines Corps hat that they wear in the film Aliens.
He's wearing it now.
Yeah. So there was a friend of mine at school got me this hat obviously because I was a fan of Alien and Aliens. But then, and then when I went to uni, I finished off and watched Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. And at some point during all of this, I also saw Alien versus Predator and movies like that, and I instantly didn't care. and I still don't. I still don't care about those films. Like, they exist, whatever. But all of the 4 films with Sigourney Weaver, they've all stuck in my brain, and I have fond memories of all of them, and rewatching them for this has been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed just sitting down and just enjoying what makes this series so unique is the fact that, like, each film comes at it from a completely different angle. Alien and Aliens, most people agree Alien is like one of the best horror movies ever made, and then Aliens is one of the best action movies ever made. They come at it from that perspective, and I love that. And then Alien 3 is the one that no one liked, but I love. And I love it because it kind of came at it from like almost like a dramatic perspective. It's almost theatrical. It has like this really tight script that I just love listening to. And finally, Alien Resurrection, it was penned by Joss Whedon, R.I.P.
Oh dear.
And that comes at it from a really 90s ironic comedic perspective. So I just love the different ways that they each approach basically the same story. Sigourney Weaver, she runs into a weird alien thing with a penis head and blows it up, throws it out an airlock, whatever. Like, they come up with all these different things. Ultimately, the story boils down to Lieutenant Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, has a weird alien that she needs to deal with. And that's the plot of everyone. And they all come at it from completely different angles, and I love them.
To be honest, I don't know why people, like, for the longest time, I didn't think of the aliens of giant penis monsters. I thought it was like a giant space pickle, but it's apparently that's wrong, so...
When I rewatched Alien, I couldn't help thinking of the fact that they sold toys of the alien, you know, from, like, Aliens, mainly, because as Rob said, like, you know, they had action figures of them.
They're unstoppable! But we've got to give it our best shot! Thunder the Marines! We're the Space Marines! Drake, Ripley, Apone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal. Queen alien breathing down your back? I blast her with the bug rocker. Button heads with a bull alien? Ripley frags him with the turbo torch. Alien invasion problem?
Send in the Marines!
Yes.
Like, when I rewatched Alien, it just is just a penis. The top of its head is just, it's the same shape.
I've got stories about toys and Alien.
Yes, no, I'm excited to chat about that.
Bye-bye bug, each sold separately. Aliens!
Let's jump into Alien then, shall we?
The main thing I love about the first Alien is how everything is so subtle and ambiguous. Even like the title, Alien, evokes lots of mystery. We don't get told exactly what this thing is, why there's loads of eggs on the plane, why there's a crashed spaceship. It makes everything scary because we don't know exactly what it is.
Exactly. It is literally Alien. The title's a double entendre. It's like, it's not just a weird, kooky alien they run into, but the thing itself is so weird. It's not like anything we've seen before.
Yeah, very big contrast to a lot of the other sci-fi being released at the time. Obviously, 2 years before this, Star Wars came out and was like the biggest movie ever at that point. Old studios were just scrambling to get space movies and TV shows out, and a lot of it was clearly like aping Star Wars, like Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers. Yeah, they even brought Star Trek out of retirement.
Tell me how your planet Vulcan looks on a lazy evening when the moon is full.
Vulcan has no moon.
Alien ended up, they greenlit it Alien because that was the only sci-fi scripts that 20th Century Fox had at the time.
Yes, Dan O'Bannon, who, God bless him, he was a wonderful he was one of the writers for Alien. And Dan O'Bannon, I love him because he also made one of my favorite horror comedies, Return of the Living Dead.
What's wrong with you?
But he was like a complete ideas man. He always came up with like these weird ideas. And his main thing was, what if we just had a weird, creepy alien, you know, running around killing everyone on a spaceship? It's an easy, dumb concept. And then Star Wars came out, and I guess they realized they needed to 20th Century Fox realized they needed to give them like a real budget. When you think of like science fiction monster movies, they were kind of a joke by the 1970s. If you think of like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, it had got to, like during the 50s, like it had got to that stage where they were campy fun, they were silly, it was people running around in silly rubber costumes. And yeah, it looked ridiculous, and they were silly. And then Alien comes out, and as Rob says, it's so ambiguous, and it's so eerie, and like sinister, and it gets under your skin.
That's another point, is we barely see the alien. That's what makes it so scary, because it's mainly keeping to the shadows. And because you never get a proper look at it, it gives it more of like an ambiguous nature, and that makes it so much more like menacing.
Yeah, we get all of maybe 1 minute of like screen time for the alien in like a 2-hour film.
Yeah, it's similar to something like Jaws, which is funny because this film was pitched at Jaws in space.
Yes.
Jaws, we barely see the shark, which adds to the suspense. Partially because the shark was having all sorts of problems, but
that's the thing. The alien, I know I said like all of these 50s films were silly people running around in rubber suits, but the alien is a guy running around in a rubber suit.
No, it's not. Got the Book of Alien right in front of me here, which I binge read before starting this podcast.
Nice.
Ridley Scott, he had a lot of experience with horror films and stuff like that. They actually got this graphic design. The actor that plays the alien, it was a graphic designer, a very tall guy that they just hired from a pub somewhere. And they got this rubber suit together for him to, like, you know, pose in. And they got all these weird poses and stuff like that. And then I think one of the crew basically said, like, why won't you just get him running around like they do in horror films? And then Ridley Scott just kind of stumbled in and said, like, I do not want him running around. We're not doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, basically, he hated horror films because they always had the monster running around. It was predictable. So what makes the alien more horrifying is that he's always posing. He's always kind of static. He's posing in shadowy sort of areas, clawing away in the shadows.
I just want to say very quickly, spoiler alert for every film.
Oh, right.
At the end of the film, Ripley's blown up the Nostromo, I think that's what the name is. And she's like so relieved. She's like, oh, finally got away from this bloody thing that's been chased. And then we just see the alien just lying there. I'm not sure if it's something that's got that kind of shape, and it's something that jumps out at her.
Yeah, it blends in with like the Nostromo shadows and the tubes and everything. It looked, if you didn't know it was there, you would just think it was part of the set.
Yeah, I love the design of the ship. It was very kind of very beat down and like dreary.
Yeah, there's coffee mugs everywhere.
Yeah, it's like, which is of course different in like Star Wars. You had like all these like really like sleek looking fast spaceships just flying around everywhere.
Yeah.
But in this film, they've got like they're just these big, slow, hulking behemoths.
These are space truckers. These are people who move very slowly through space. You know, it's like they're not the anti-Star Wars.
They're not like the dashing Han Solos or anything. They're just average Joes just doing their day job.
They're doing their job.
Before we dock, I think we ought to discuss the bonus situation.
Well, you get what you contracted for like everybody else.
One thing I want to point out about the Nostromo, by the way, because we were discussing and comparing it to Star Wars, the person that actually did the illustrations, the preliminary like illustrations for it, worked from Star Wars. He was part of the crew. And his name, Bannon, you mentioned a minute ago, he actually came and visited him one day. His name is Ron Cobb. He's the illustrator. He's a complete nerd. Like, he's basically an engineer-loving kind of collect models of spaceships for reference and vehicles and all that, and like get every detail right. And that really is reflected in the film. Like, the very opening sequence is the Nostromo, like, you know, looking around at all the detail of the interior, and like you get this feeling that some complexity to it. There's that's where the sci-fi really shines. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What I loved watching Alien was I noticed the ceiling a lot. I know this is really dumb. In a lot of movies don't have ceilings generally because the camera needs to be able to move around from above and things like that. So it's very difficult to film stuff when there's like a ceiling. When you imagine like a sitcom, like there's never a ceiling on those sets ever. They always have cameras like all over the place. The set of the Nostromo it's so claustrophobic.
Oh yeah.
And almost every shot is from a low angle. We're always looking up at the protagonist because they've just got this ceiling, and sometimes it looks so low it's, you know, you have to bend down to like move around it. Yeah, as Rob said, it's a beat up old ship. It wasn't designed really with humans in mind almost. Like it's so claustrophobic and everyone's got like cabin fever.
You mentioned like the darkness of the ship. There was something deliberate with like the colour grading going on.
Even like the rooms are all white, but they still feel like really scary. They feel like there's something off-putting about the way everything looks.
It's like a flying cathedral. Very shadowy, like you kind of get this feeling like some ghouls hiding around there somewhere, and that's really cool.
That's a point, actually. I hadn't thought about that, but the alien is like a gargoyle. I always think of, this is really bad, but like Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney film, I always love the fact that like the gargoyles themselves, like, not the cartoony ones, but like there's the bit when he mentions like the eyes of Notre Dame, and it's all like the eyes of the gargoyles just staring at Jean-Claude Frollo. And that's what the alien's like. He blends into the statues of the old ship. Yeah, no, it is like a cathedral.
So that's another thing as well, that there's an obsession with every artist, including H.R. Geiger, which we will talk about, with skeletons and bones. And even from the design of the ship, there's this obsession with bones and making it all look skeletal. And
you really get that with the LV-426.
Yes, an obsession with combining skeletons and bones with machines. And there's something machine-like even about the alien as well. And that's why the two intertwine.
Even the space jockey's got this weird design.
The space jockey. That's my favourite scene.
Okay, we should point out quickly. So the plot of Alien is that a bunch of space truckers get a distress signal. Well, at first they think it's a distress signal from a planet that's like completely, it's like a dead planet called LV-426. They land on it, they go investigate it, and they find an alien spaceship. When they get in there, they find what's been called the space jockey, which is like this giant humanoid, well, kind of humanoid alien on this big seat with like a giant telescope or something that it's staring into, with its chest ruptured.
It looks like a space elephant.
Yeah, it's got
a trunk on it.
It's got like a weird trunk face, and it's like combined with the ship, so it looks like it was almost like born inside it.
Yeah,
like it never had any other purpose.
And again, we don't know what this thing is.
No.
Which is one of the problems I have with making films like Prometheus and Covenant. They just ruin the mystery that this film encapsulates.
Alien Covenant wasn't as bad, but Prometheus does go out of his way to just demystify that whole scene, and I choose to retcon that almost. It's just like, no.
I don't think... Yeah, because in Prometheus, they show the space jockey as humanoid.
I didn't watch Prometheus or Covenant until preparing for this podcast because I'd heard things about them. I only watched them for this to get a sense of context for the whole series.
Yeah.
Covenant's fine, but Prometheus just was boring. It made Alien worse.
So one of the explorers, Kane, played by John Hurt, he investigates the alien spaceship and finds a huge, like when we look at it, it's gigantic, this huge like warehouse almost of eggs, and there's thousands of them, and he goes down, he like touches one of them, and it immediately like reacts and opens up, and then something jumps out and latches onto his face. They return him back to the ship and everything's fine. Well, not fine, like, he's got a thing on his face, but then eventually, after a few hours, the thing comes off and they find that it's dead. It's like this weird thing, they called it the face hugger, because it like literally just hugs someone's face and it's impossible to cut off because well, it bleeds acid, they discover.
And it goes through the ceiling.
Yes, well, that's the thing. If they cut the acid, then the acid's going to go through the hull of the ship and kill everyone. So it's a very dangerous creature.
It's got a wonderful defense mechanism. You don't dare kill it.
But then it comes off and everything's fine. And then they all go to have dinner.
Yes, this scene is perfect. Like, there's no music, and the scene starts out. It's like pretty normally. The crew, they're happily eating together. Then suddenly, Kane, who had the facehugger on, he starts choking on his food, and then it becomes more violent. And then suddenly, a creature erupts from his chest.
Yeah.
What's perfect is the other cast members weren't told this was going to happen, so their reaction is genuine.
Yeah.
Especially when you see Veronica Cartwright, who plays Lambert. It's the way that, like, a thing of blood just splatters all over her face when the thing bursts out. Yeah. I feel so sorry for her. You can hear her reaction. It's
apparently
just like,
I was reading, she apparently ducked under somewhere, like, to hide after it happened. One thing I want to point, and I covered it in the essay I wrote on it. So I wrote an essay about Alien at University Masters. What the writers were getting at is that for men in particular, there's a fear of becoming pregnant, and they played off that because it's something that they're not confronted with in real life.
Yeah.
So basically, they got this otherworldly thing to make that possible, and an insane reality, and even imagining it gets under your skin, basically. But there's that bit before all this dinner scene happens where, like, John Hurt, Kane was just sitting down going, like, I had a nightmare where I was dreaming about smothering it. And it's like, what?
Dan O'Bannon said that he wanted all the men in the audience to cross their legs.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the quotes. I included that in my essay.
One thing I noticed upon rewatch was, so Yaphet Kotto, who plays Parker, and people who've watched Live and Let Die, the James Bond film, will know Yaphet Kotto as the main villain in that, Mr. Big, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Big, yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, so he's one of the cast in this, and he's like, you know, they're all joking around at the dinner table. He makes an oral sex joke. He, like, at one point says something like, you know, because they're eating dinner, and Kane says, like, oh, you know, I can't wait to have, you know, a decent meal when I get home. Parker says something like, oh, yeah, I'm thinking of eating something else as well. It made me realize Kane has had the most lethal oral sex of all time.
God. Oh, God. Why?
Yeah, that's another point. Like, there's a lot of this film has a lot of very, like, lot of sexual subtext.
And that's where we should jump into H.R. Geiger, I think. Well, a lot of his artwork, even before Alien, you can look at it, there's an element of fantasy horror based on his night terrors that have this really weird sexual imagery going on, very subtly. And you can look very closely. There's phallic stuff going on. Like, it looks like little aliens, like very skeletal beings getting it on, basically. It's very weird and horrifying at the same time. And then when you mix something like that with horrific imagery, it's really uncomfortable. It makes for uncomfortable watching. I think that adds to the horror of the alien a lot.
So weird that Kenner decided to make toys of this film. Basically, obviously, Kenner made the original Star Wars toys, and they were like a massive success. They hoped to repeat this with Aliens, so they planned out 3 3/4-inch figures, like the same scale as like Star Wars figures.
Yeah.
And they actually released a big 12-inch figure of the Alien.
Alien action figure.
Let's go! Quick, shut the airlock! The alien's locked out now! He got through! Give up! Alien can't be beat.
It was quickly pulled from store shelves because the film came out, and because of how non-child friendly it was, I think there's some concern about how they're marketing it to children. In 2014, the planned 3 3/4-inch figures, I think they had the molds for them. Funko, who make the Funko Pops, actually released the figures. I think they made like replications of what they would have been like.
Another triumph for Alien.
With the H.R. Geiger design, so Geiger has a lot of kind of interesting sexual imagery in his art.
Yeah.
And in the design of the alien, and with the spaceship itself, because there's a lot of stuff with that, but there's a kind of ambiguous sexuality. You mentioned that in your essay, James. The alien itself has a mix of both sexual characteristics, because on the one hand, you've got this big penis head, as I mentioned, but then you've also got this mouth. It's a penis, kind of sticks out, and it penetrates as well, as we see when it like shoves into people's faces. But then it's kind of vaginal, basically.
Basically like a conscious vagina with legs.
Yeah, it's like a weird spider vagina. And the whole ship has that same theme. Like, there was a great book I've got, because you mentioned a book. I've got my book. It's called Alien Woman, The Making of L.T. Ellen Ripley. Read it. It's a good book. But they described the LV-426 ship as like a womb tomb, because like everything on it is dead, but it's got these thousands of eggs in it. When they walk into like these big vagina doors, basically. So you realize that, the humans walking in, they're going to be impregnated by these eggs. So there's a kind of disturbed sex act that's going on.
Yeah, there's also two things I wanted to point out. And I mentioned the first one in my essay, which is the beginning of the cryo chamber. Looks like little eggs, like in the womb almost. In fact, it looks almost like a birth chamber, do you know what I mean, where like children are preserved. But then also there's a second scene which we talked about, but I didn't mention in my essay, and I'm really annoyed that I didn't, which is the bit where the android malfunctions. Which, by the way, apparently a person came in to serve food when it's like first viewing. Passed out when he saw that, because it was so graphic. He was just like, oh my god, the head's been separated or something like that. But there's the whole room full of pornography, and also the android tries to like kill Ripley with this magazine. And I think, how did you describe it? And you said it was like kind of like almost an assault, almost. It was like,
it's like sexual assault. Yeah. Okay, so this is the thing. I completely forgot about Ash. So Ash is played by Ian Holm, actual R.I.P., beloved, Bilbo Baggins. But Ash in the film, it turns out that he's an android working for the evil company, who are the real villains of the film, because they're the ones who sent the crew to the planet to pick up this alien. And they want it for their weapons division, because they're a contractor corporation who are wanting to make money off of this thing. But anyway, so eventually Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, figures out that the company are trying to get them all killed, basically. And Ash, working for the company, tries to stop her and silence her. And so the way he does that is, he grabs this porn magazine, rolls it up, and starts jamming it down her throat. And it's horrific, because it's a form of basically oral sex, but lacking an actual penis, I guess.
Yeah, it's not in a literal sense at all.
No. But when you think of I also want to say quickly, these are the most pro-abortion films ever made. It's like, please kill the fetus, because
especially if it's trying to kill you.
it will come out and try to kill you. But this was the era of Roe versus Wade, the big abortion debate in America at the time. So this was a big discussion point during the 70s. The porno magazine comes from another side of the feminist kind of discourse, which is of course the argument that pornography is an attack on women. So when you have a character jamming a porno magazine in a woman's throat, trying to kill her, I feel like there's very deliberate messaging going on there.
Pro-abortion. Ben Shapiro should watch this film.
Do you want to get to the director's cut of this film?
Yes, so the director's cut, there's some extra scenes, and on the one hand, I want to say quickly, I actually prefer the original version, because I think the pacing's stronger, it's a stronger film.
Oh, I agree.
But I love the extra scenes that the director's cut adds in. They're all interesting, and they all kind of add extra layers to the story.
Yeah, the thing with the director's cut is Ridley Scott was asked to produce it for the Alien Quadrilogy box set.
Yeah.
But the reason there wasn't a director's cut before then was because he felt the film was perfect. But he thought, this could be a way to just have an alternative way to watch the film, which is basically what the director's cut is. It does not replace the original.
Yeah.
It is an alternative way to watch the film.
Yeah. To his credit, it doesn't feel drastically different in comparison to the other cuts, but there are some minor changes that are very significant in nature, and it's the one scene in particular which is the weird thing that this alien makes, basically to trap all the victims, and they're still alive in this cocoon, basically.
Horrifying.
That is horrifying, but that one scene, makes all the difference. I hardly noticed many other changes in the film, apart from that one. That one really stuck out to me, and it's so uncomfortable to watch and distressing.
It's like, I think what's disturbing about it is it's like a spider's web, because it's like you have these people, and they are literally cocooned in like this kind of weird thing, and you realize that with poor Brett, Harry Dean Stanton, he's literally been transforming into an egg, basically, and Dallas, the captain, who's been, you know, captured by the alien and he's still alive, is also slowly morphing into whatever this thing is, whether it's an egg, whether it's a cocoon, we don't know, but it's metamorphizing them, they're changing, and it's very disturbing. But even just little scenes, like I loved, Lambert has a bit more personality in the director's cut. At one point she straight up slaps Ripley, which I was amazed by watching it.
Is that because Ripley wouldn't let them back on the ship because they had to be quarantined?
Yes. So, very 2020 pandemic. Ripley she's following the rules perfectly. She says, no, they cannot come on board because, Kane has some kind of weird organism on his face, which will bring, could be a risk of infection, which she is proven right later on.
Paul's the dickhead robot had to go, I'm going to let them on because of science.
Well, of course.
Boris Johnson should watch this film.
Well,
you could teach him about quality.
For the longest time, Ash is the one who looks like he's the good guy here. Like, for the longest time,
the robot twist is so well built up. Like, you have no idea of it until it happens.
Ash is a goddamn robot.
He's probably my favorite. Like, aside from Ripley, I think Ash is my favorite character because it's the very end. Yeah, it's when, as you mentioned, James, like they knock his head off, which is horrifying. It's like, and it falls backwards onto his back, and it's grim.
So, the film it doesn't have a clear protagonist until about halfway through when the Ripley suddenly falls into that role.
Yeah, well, he's the only one left.
When the film started, I thought Kane was going to be the protagonist because it focuses on him, and then obviously he's the first to go.
It's the scene at the very end when he's like admiring the alien, Ash. He's like, and he says my favorite line in the film.
I admire its purity.
The thing about Ash is that he seems to have like an android superiority complex. This idea that like androids are like the next step of human evolution.
Yeah.
I think he sees the alien in very similar light. The alien, which is of course basically John Hurt, Kane's child. Ash refers to it as Kane's son, even, which has interesting biblical connotations if you think of Cain and Abel. He sees the alien as like a real improvement on humanity, which becomes a big theme in the later films, is this kind of obsession with the alien as this kind of greater being. I really love the cast of Alien.
That's a good point. You mentioned, we were talking about this, but like the way the characters act and the dialogue, even though it's not really a character-driven film, they're very believable. Like, I can imagine these people reacting in this sort of way to an alien. The other films don't quite get that right, I don't think. In this one...
No, they between the camera work and the editing and the production design, I think like the actors are just so perfect. And when you realize like all of them are great, so this is a really pretentious Hollywood term, but they're all character actors. And you think, oh, well, all actors are character actors.
Yeah.
And it's like, they are. But character actors usually play kind of interesting and kind of distinctive roles. Think of like John Hurt, who like played everyone from like Doctor Who, or the Doctor, I should say. But to things like Quentin Crisp in The Naked Civil Servant and Caligula in I, Claudius.
Winston in 1984.
Exactly.
The rabbit warship down. Sorry, Karen.
Harry Dean Stanton is in like a ton of David Lynch things. And Ian Holm, of course, is in Fifth Element. He's Bilbo in Lord of the Rings. And Veronica Cartwright is in Witches of Eastwick. Like, oh my God. Like, this cast, they're all wonderful. And I just wanted to... And of course, Sigourney Weaver, because of course... just phenomenal. Like, one fun story I heard was that, because of course they were originally going to cast a man to play Ripley, but then I think at some point they just thought, could we cast a woman for this? One story I loved was that with the studio, they showed Sigourney Weaver's screen tests to all the secretaries in the studio, who were all women. And she tested really well with them. So that was their decision.
During this sort of period, I think, there was like a big rise in the sort of strong female protagonists. And I think that was like during the whole tank girl craze and stuff like that.
Oh, totally.
You know, you could have this badass woman that's like, you know, anti-authoritarian and anti-everything that's been done before. Instead, they're like the one leading the way. And I kind of see that with, like, you know, Ripley.
That's a good lead on to Aliens.
Yay!
Which
I got signals, I got readings in front and behind.
There's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
Get them out of there!
Aliens. This time, it's war.
Technically, I think Alien, on an objective level, I think Alien is a better film.
Yeah.
However, Aliens is probably my favourite.
I used to like it, but now that I watched it again as an adult, both versions are... sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, Rob. But
no, it's fine. We'll have another clash later.
Yeah, no, but it's like... there are good things about this film, but at the same time, for me, the alien doesn't show up for the first hour in both versions. Maybe like a facehugger appears, and that's about it. The alien has been down-powered. The characters aren't as fleshed out. I mean, I like Bishop and all that. They're all great. And otherwise, like, I just find myself kind of drifting off during the viewing of it, and that sounds really bad.
See, what I like about the film is it's not trying to copy Alien, it's trying to do its own thing. It is missing the horror aspect, but it still manages to make the Xenomorphs threatening, because even though they have, like, the protagonists have access to weaponry that can easily, like, blow them apart, the Xenomorphs are still able to, like, take out most of the cast. And it does the action really well, although I'm a sucker for, like, 80s action movies.
Yeah.
So.
I've given it a lot of thought, and, like, I think my problem is mainly with the special edition, the director's cut of Aliens. It's just too long. It goes on forever.
There's only one scene I like in the director's cut, because it plays into Ripley's arc. Ripley was in cryosleep at the end of Alien. And in Alien, she's awoken and found out she's been asleep for like 50 years or something. She finds out her daughter died while she's in cryosleep.
Yeah.
And I feel that adds to her arc, because her arc in this film is missed like 50 years. She missed her daughter's whole life. And then suddenly, like halfway through the film, when she's sent to this colony that's been attacked by aliens, she finds this helpless girl, and then that gives her like a purpose.
Yeah.
I know Ewan has issues with them. I know Ewan has issues with that, but I thought it was a really good arc.
My main issue with that is mainly Newt. So Newt is the little girl that they find on the planet. So, okay, so in the story, Ripley has been away for 50 years. She comes back, and then she finds that the planet that they landed on originally has since been colonized by terraformers. And would you believe it? The place has since been taken over by aliens, and everything's gone to hell. So they send in the Marines.
This is the scene that is ruined by seeing the director's cut, where we already see the colony early before Ripley gets there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just spoils the surprise. Hicks in this film, he kind of has a similar arc to Ripley in the previous one, because Ripley was kind of forced into like a more of a leadership kind of role.
Yeah.
Hicks has a similar kind of deal, because he was like being the highest ranking survivor of the Marines.
As Burke dismissively calls him, he's just he's just a grunt.
I like Hudson. I don't know you.
I like Hudson.
But, like, here's the thing, like, I feel like he is kind of, like, reacting in a way that I can find believable, but is also absolutely hilarious. Like, the game, like, there's a little bit where, like, Ripley's talking to Newt saying, like, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. You just see him in the background going, it's all over, we're gonna die, mate.
Right?
I'm sorry, Newt.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?
And also, there's the bit where, like, Newt basically is in charge. She's going to guide them to where the aliens are. And there's a little jump cut to her just, like, saluting in this little helmet. And then Hudson's just like, what the hell, man? Why are we getting a child in charge?
This little girl survived longer than that with no weapons and no training. Right?
Why don't you put her in
You
charge?
better just start dealing with it, Hudson.
It's like he's the only one that's got common sense. Is thinking, why am I stuck with these maniacs?
Speaking of Hudson, I love the Marines and the way they all play off each other. Particularly, Banquez and Drake have a very brother-sisterly relationship.
Yes. He just too bad.
I just thought that was really good.
Yeah.
One thing that helped with that is they filmed the Marine scenes last, so they had like a sense of like camaraderie between them all.
Yeah, I think my problem with Newt is that aside from two problems, right? First off, I just think that the whole thing with Ripley wanting to be a surrogate mother and wanting Newt to be a surrogate daughter is just annoying and very like, I don't know, it screams of 80s. What would a woman like want, you know, what would a woman care about? And it's like, oh, of course, children. And my other problem is the character development that they spend so much time on with Newt and Ripley, basically just getting Newt to talk. Could have been spent on Drake and Vasquez, could have been spent on Hudson, it could have been spent on Hicks. I actually really like Hudson. I like him as a character. I just wish we got to know him more. Like, the only cool thing Hudson really gets to do is he rescues Newt from the facehugger, which is great. I like seeing him do that. And of course it's Bill Paxton. I love Bill Paxton.
We're going to talk about him next episode.
But yeah, like Bill Paxton is cool. And I just feel like I would have really liked to have known, like, you know, what's Hudson's backstory? Why is a guy who's so freaked out by everything? Why the hell is he in the Marine?
They're coming out of the wall! They're coming out of the goddamn wall!
Like, what's his story? And Vasquez, like, she gets this whole setup of being like this badass, basically a butch lesbian. Like, butch lesbian who's clearly the top of the Marine Corps.
I only need to know one thing. Where they are.
But it's like, who is she? Well, she's like borderline a Mexican stereotype.
Somebody said alien. She thought they said illegal alien and signed up.
And I'm just like, no, don't make her a Mexican stereotype. Make her interesting. Like, god damn it.
I will say that, again, they have done a good job with Bishop, though. And also the interplay.
Bishop is cool.
I do like Bishop.
And can I just say as well, Burke is... It says in my notes here, Burke, what a slimy bastard. Because
you wrote that down.
Because Ash in Alien, he was doing what he did because he was programmed to.
Yeah.
Burke is basically playing the same role, but he's even worse because he's a human, so he's doing it because he wants to get money off it. He wants to profit off it, so he's doing it for his own selfish agendas.
You know, Burke, I don't know which species is worse. You don't see them fucking each other over for a goddamn percentage.
What? Yeah, what an arse. But
another thing I like is this film does not try to explain the origins of the Xenomorph and still maintains a sense of mystery about them.
Yeah.
The only thing that gets added to them is that we get to see what laid the eggs in the first one, which is a queen.
Which is awesome.
And and the scene where the queen's revealed is genuinely really well done because Ripley goes into the room with all the eggs and then suddenly you see the camera kind of like slowly reveal this like big giant thing with like a massive, I'm not sure how to describe, a massive tube coming out of her that's laying the eggs.
It's like an egg sack. It's huge
it's so
thing.
weird.
Like, it's very gross.
And she has those two little bodyguards with her that are just like, hey mum, we'll protect you, and then all of a sudden they get a flamethrower. It's like, oh okay, we're gonna hide mum.
And then, of course, at the end, the Queen ends up coming onto the ship, and Alien gets to fight with the power loader, which she says, probably my favourite line in the movie.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Yeah. Great moment. Well, as I mentioned when rewatching Aliens, my favourite thing in the film is definitely the power loaders. Because they look like power armor from Fallout. I guess it's stop motion, right? Like, the way they did it. I don't know how they did it. I'm still not sure how they did it. It's amazing. It's like she's like grabbing the alien and like pushing it away. And like
stop motion. If it's stop motion, it's really good stop motion.
Right.
And there was a toy line for this film released in 1992, which is where the Ripley I had came from. in the 80s, a big thing of like taking these R-rated movies and marketing them for children.
They're unstoppable, but we've got to give it our best shot.
Normally, this was done through an animated series. This is what they initially tried to do with Alien. They were going to do a cartoon series called Operation Aliens. They made a pilot, but it's never seen the light of day aside from like some screenshots. They cancelled it because they realised it was practically impossible to try and make Aliens more kid-friendly. But Kenner had already made all the toys, so they just released them anyway.
Oh my god.
But the toy line was interesting because they had all these different aliens that came from different creatures. So there's like a gorilla alien, there's a butterfly.
Oh wow.
I think so. Flying alien queen.
Alien flying queen! And her gruesome gorillas! Send in the ultimate space marine, Atax, disguised in his big bad bug suit.
He sneaks in.
Wow.
Which is interesting because that's something that comes up in Alien 3.
Yes, yeah, there is. Well, one thing we should note about the alien is the fact that, you know, it does carry the DNA of its original hosts. So the reason why it's always so humanoid, at least in Alien and Aliens, is because its host is human. But yeah, no, there definitely would be variations because, you know, it latches into whatever host it grabs and just rolls with that.
Going back to Bishop as well, there is this anxiety of like androids that Ripley develops, understandably, after the events of Alien.
You never said anything about an android being on board. Why not?
And basically, Bishop's like this different type of android. He's more sophisticated. And he's sort of like selfless. He says like he isn't stupid, he knows he's risking his life, but he's programmed to do these sort of things and be protective. Eventually the two do learn to trust each other. The way that those two develop, I think, was really well done in Aliens.
Bishop does redeem androids in Aliens, which I do like. I like Bishop. Like, you know, it's Lance Henriksen, you know, he's great, and he does a great job of like this kind of, I don't know, he's got like a kind of almost like dead-eyed look to him. There's nothing behind the eyes kind of thing, but at the same time it's like, no, he is a good guy. He saves them in the end and turns up with the ship. Oh, I love all of that.
And then he gets cuts open very horribly. There's one more thing I want to praise about this film. Is the world building that gets introduced into the alien world, to be fair. Like, it introduces like Weyland-Yutani.
Weyland-Yutani is the name of the company that is the main villain of the series, as I said.
And we get the Marines who try to make a shit video game about them.
Well, how do you know I don't actually really like Colonial Marines? I don't, it's fucking atrocious, but you'd have looked pretty silly if I had, wouldn't you?
And the guns that they use as well, which is quite significant to the video games.
They're so cool.
They used them so well in the video game adaptations of Alien and Alien vs Predator. Like, they used to kind of, they get louder the closer you get to an alien, and it's brilliant. So the film brought us that, so we've got to give it credit.
Like I said, I enjoy Aliens. It's a fun kind of science fiction action movie. I wish that, like, I want Vasquez to like have a whole badass scene to herself with the pulse rifle. Like, I don't know, just
the whole first hour was too long. It was just too long for me.
Well, I think the original cut is solid. The special edition just makes you want to crawl into a hole and get impregnated by an alien.
Oh God, okay.
They mostly come out at night, mostly.
It's Alien 3.
Yes.
In a world where the sun burns cold, a visitor has come, but not by herself. The bitch is back. Alien 3.
I like it, but it is a little bit messy. But given the behind-the-scenes bullshit that went on with this movie, because this movie was in development hell for like years, I'm more forgiving of it. So the fact that it turned out as well as it did needs to be commended, considering everything that went on.
Yeah, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes nonsense. How many directors did they work through?
Quite a few different scripts as well.
Yeah, different scripts. I noticed that there were like 5 or 6 writers.
Yeah.
It was
originally the idea was going to be about Hicks because they weren't sure if they were going to get Sigourney Weaver back. Then there's one where they're going to be like some space mall when there's going to be this space Russians or something.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
I think the reason why I love Alien 3 as much as I do. It's definitely my second favorite of the series, I would say. If even up there with Alien. It's not as well made as Alien, but I like all the themes in it and everything.
I like that it's, like with Aliens, it's not trying to be Alien. This isn't even trying to be Aliens. It's trying to be more of its own thing. Character focused.
Exactly. What I like is that you've had these two films that are fairly ensemble driven. Like, Ripley gets to do all the heroics at the end of Aliens, but ultimately they're ensemble casts. They're all about that. This is Ripley's film, and I really like that. I really like that we finally get a movie where she gets to, like, breathe for a second, right?
Yeah. Like, I like that it ends with her sacrificing, because this alien thing has ruined her life for like years, and she's finally just kills herself to rid the universe of it.
Yeah, well, that's the big spoiler warning on this one, is that yes, Ripley does die at the end of Alien 3. That's what's so sad about it, is that it's her last days.
I also love the idea that xenomorphs take different forms depending on the animal they gestate inside. Although the idea of it being a dog in the theatrical cut was a bit silly.
I'm not against it. I'm honestly fine with it, because it at least explains why it runs so fast. I don't know, because it's a very fast moving alien, whereas the other ones were always quite slow moving.
Yeah.
This one sprints. So there's part of me that's like, yeah, it makes sense that it came out of a dog. It's like a little dog alien.
But the purpose of the cow, I think, is more in tone with the themes of the film.
Another spoiler. Hicks and Newt are killed off screen. Their funeral, at the same time, we get to see the alien being born. I thought that was really well done.
From a seed comes new life as well.
That whole opening of Alien 3 is freaky.
I think that's what put off a lot of people from Alien 3, is that they were big fans of Aliens and they wanted to see more of like Hicks and Newt and all of that kind of thing. Which I think Hicks and Newt, as I said in the last thing, they barely had any character development, so I can't care less. So bye. Like, whatever. And finally, Ripley doesn't have a stupid child like hanging off of her. It's Ripley's story. It's not Mommy Ripley. I've always thought that Newt is more interesting dead than alive.
Oh, God. Jesus.
Because Ripley's sadness, I love Sigourney Weaver's performance in this. Like, I just love the way that there's a mix of sadness, but then there's also that kind of sense of urgency, because she immediately has the character Clemens, played by Charles Dance, do an autopsy on Newt to make sure that she wasn't killed by an alien. And she's asked, was she your daughter? And she just says no. And there's this real, sadness.
I do like this film. The reason I don't rank it as high as Aliens or Alien is there's just some stuff for me that doesn't work. It's like Alien and Aliens, I think they have really good atmosphere. This isn't quite on that level. Like, it's got great cinematography, but I think the aesthetic of the sets is a bit bland.
It's very brown.
Very dirty looking as well.
Yeah.
Probably the worst special effects of the entire quadrilogy.
Yes.
What the hell? They bloody they did something with the alien. I don't know if it's like stop motion, but it's clearly a composited special effect.
There's that iconic scene, the alien's right up in Ripley's face and she's kind of like back against the wall. Like, that looks really good, but the shot before that looks absolutely dreadful.
It's like a little cartoon.
It's so green because there's clearly the green screen composite background. We should once again just explain the premise quickly. So Ripley crash lands on a planet called Fury 16, which she discovers used to be a prison planet for extremely violent criminals, they mention. But it's no longer a prison because the company closed it down years ago, but a lot of the inmates had found religion. So it's actually more of a monastery than it is like a prison at this point. So
that's interesting. It's originally it's going to be on this wooden planet with loads of monks, but then that got changed to the prison planet.
Which is a perfect idea. It's great because you have this one woman turning up in this world of hyper-aggressive men who haven't seen a woman in years. There's a great moment when Charles Dance, Clemens, he just mentions, none of these men have seen a woman in years. Neither have I, for that matter.
The guy who did Newt and Hicks's service, Ripley comes down to thank him for the service, and then he's just like...
Yeah, well, you don't want to know me, lady. I'm a murderer and rapist of women.
Really? Well, I guess I must make you nervous.
It's so good. Rick is a badass. Like,
one of my problems with the script is there was an egg on the ship. How did it get there?
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't matter. Well, it does. Well, if you want an explanation, I don't know. I think maybe it burst out of Hicks. It made Hicks into an egg, and that's why his body is so ruptured. And then there's an extra facehugger running around that gets onto the dog / cow. We should mention it was also a cow in the special edition.
The alien just popped in the corner somewhere and no one saw it. That's what happened.
The problem I have for this film is Sigourney Weaver only agreed to this film if there weren't any guns in it. It's like, on this one, not a big issue, but we're on a prison planet where there's no guns. Like, you think at least the guards would be carrying like some kind of firearm in case they get up.
No, disagree. Oh. Brian Glover, who plays the superintendent, Superintendent Andrews, he points out that the people like who are in charge of the prison, they don't need guns anymore, because don't give a bunch of violent criminals guns, or don't give them any kind of access to guns for obvious reasons. But if the prisoners decide to kill the superintendent or any of the guards or anything, there's a supply ship that arrives every 6 months. If the superintendent isn't there to answer them, the supply ship will stop supplying the planet, and all of the people on the planet would die. So, no, it makes sense. It does make sense.
The remark that Sigourney Weaver had was she wanted to like have sex with a Xenomorph. I think they were just like, you can have the no guns, but that's not happening.
Okay.
No, she actually gets to have sex, which is great. Okay, so I really love this movie's script. There's a lot of great little moments. She's chatting to Charles Dance. He's like asking her questions because he wants to know, like, you know, who is she? Where is she from? She's like putting up all of the walls to like kind of distract from what's her backstory, like what's happened to her, like why, you know, how did she end up crash landing on a prison planet? And she immediately changes the conversation where she's like, are you attracted to me?
In what way?
In that way.
You're very direct.
I've been out here a long time.
So it's cute, like, oh yeah, she's got the horn.
It's so good. Oh, and then they bone. It's wonderful.
To the monastery stuff we were talking about, there is a lot of biblical themes in this film. The special edition and the cow, it's kind of like a sacrifice to the gods, but it kind of goes horribly wrong, basically. And a lot of the things you see in, like, the Iliad in particular, there's, like, plagues and stuff that the gods bring upon, like, people that are sinning, basically.
And so basically, the director of this film was David Fincher, but this film had, like, loads of producers and stuff who were, like, interfering, and Fincher, he wasn't happy about that, so I think he just walked off and was just like, yeah, I've had enough.
He's thrown a hissy fit about that film ever since. Like,
Yeah, when he got asked to, I think, special edition for the Quadrilogy box set, he was like, no, because I'd had to reshoot loads of stuff. And so what they did was they got like an earlier cut, which is, I think, closer to his vision. I think that it works better. The added things are like more weights to the film.
It looks almost like, I wanted to say like Lord of the Ringsy at the very start. Like there's definitely, you know, with the monastery.
I was going to say it's more like Dune. Like,
a bit at the start where the guy single-handedly takes Ripley and just runs with her.
That's so cool.
I was just going to say that it reminds me, there's a lot of like pulpy sci-fi stories and novels and stuff like that have like cloaked figures running around deserts and these weird anachronistic looking like cloaked figures in the kind of futuristic environments. It captured that so perfectly.
You know, on that note, I love where they mention that they've got all of this technology and no way to fix it, because they don't have like spare parts or anything. So I love that. Yeah, it's this anachronistic world of like cloaks and religion. And Ripley, when she's introduced in the special edition, she is on the beach, like completely covered in like this black mud almost, and also covered in maggots as well. It's really gross. And she's like washed ashore from the sea. You get the sense of, as you said, like this biblical imagery. There's definitely a bit of the Eve to her, like Pandora's box, Eve, Lilith, even these kind of biblical woman figures who bring disaster to the world that they've come down on. And you know what? That's actually completely accurate with Ripley, because wherever she goes, the alien follows, I always feel. And
she finds out the reason the alien isn't attacking her is because she has the queen inside her.
Yes, and also, if you think of the alien in this as Satan, basically, because at one point Paul McGann, who's in this film, he describes the alien as a dragon, which, fair enough, it kind of does look like that. It's like a weird serpent creature. And when you think of dragons in biblical terms, also in the film, they describe it as the beast. And that's a very Book of Revelations kind of reference. And the dragon as well. That's a different depictions of Satan are all tied up in beast and dragon and things like that. So if you think of, basically, Ripley she's Eve, she brings disaster to the world, and she's like born from the earth, because while she also comes from, you could say she comes from heaven, but she's found in the mud with the maggots, so she's born of the earth, and she comes from heaven. So she's Eve, but she's also kind of Jesus.
I also think, in a way, that, again, going back to, the Iliad and Greek stuff like that, gods would typically curse men and women, with plagues and stuff like that if they disobeyed them. These characters are all kind of being punished because they're all in prisons and they have done things in their lives. In a way, the alien is like that plague.
There's a sense of redemption, I guess, for some of these characters. That's what Dylan, Charles S. Dutton, the priest guy who does the sermon, and the guy who also says to Ripley that he doesn't want to know her because he's a murderer and rapist of women. So all of these characters, their fight with the alien is ultimately to save humanity.
And that is shown by the end, because Ripley kills herself. She's pregnant with the Queen, and that's ridding the universe of this monster for good.
It's the passion of Ripley, especially when you think of Jesus and how Jesus would hang out with all the pimps and the prostitutes. It's a similar thing. You've got a woman Jesus hanging out with all the thieves and the murderers and the rapists, and they're the ones who are tasked with saving humanity. The thing that I love is it's such a weird film. The way they kill the alien as well, where they drop hot lead on it and then pour water on it so it explodes. It's so weird.
Yeah. They also got a good Shakespearean cast for it as well.
I love that Charles Dance is Ripley's love interest in this. Because Charles Dance is a really great actor, so it's great to see him here. But also, he's introduced as a doctor who treats Ripley when she crash lands on the planet. Although he does mention when she says you're a doctor, and he just says chief medical officer. He's not a doctor, because it later turns out that he actually himself used to be a prisoner of the planet, because he was addicted to morphine, he was drinking as well, and he accidentally killed 15 patients with the wrong dose of painkiller. So, he had his medical license revoked and he was put on the prison planet. And then when the prison closed, he was asked if he wanted to stay as the medical officer, because they couldn't get anyone else and he couldn't get work anywhere else. And what I love is that when you think about him and Ripley, they're both people with survivor's guilt. They're conscious of the fact that, why have I survived? And all of the people, whether or not I cared about them, but ultimately, why am I still alive? And why is someone like Newt dead when Newt was completely innocent? I think that Clemens is a wonderful foil, because both of them have all of the walls up. They barely tell each other about each other at first. But then as the film continues, we get more of a sense of who Clemens is, and we get more of a sense of who Ripley is. Also, Ripley has her own Jesus moment. There's a bit when she literally has her arms wide open because she wants Dylan to kill her. But then he refuses because he says, if you've got that thing inside you, that means you've got an advantage. The alien won't kill you, so that gives us a way to help kill it.
Yeah, that's another change they made to the special edition, is when Ripley kills herself, in the theatrical cut, the alien actually bursts out of her. Assembly cut, it doesn't, and I think I kind of prefer that.
Yeah, it's more of her moment rather than the aliens. Although I do kind of love when the alien bursts from her chest as she falls into the fire. I do kind of like the fact that she grabs it and she's like, oh no, you don't! It realizes it's about to die and it's like, oh, fuck. Jumps out.
It's like Lord of the Rings when Gollum falls into Mount Doom.
I really love Ripley's pep talk to the prisoners when they're all freaking out, and she just says, do you really think the company are gonna give a shit about a bunch of ex-cons on the arse end of the galaxy. And that's when shit starts to dawn on them that, oh god, we are like, to them, we're crud.
Because at the end...
So cool in this film, I love Ripley.
Weyland-Yutani, actually Bishop, or at least supposedly the human that the Bishop android was based on, comes to claim the... And that's why Ripley's like, you're not getting this thing, and just yeets herself.
To go into biblical references, it's the last temptation of Ripley. It's when he's saying to Ripley, like, this can all end. We'll take it out of you. We'll freeze it so that it can be surgically removed. You can start your whole life again. You can have a family. You can do...
Which is obviously a lie.
Move on with life.
They're gonna just straight up murder her.
Oh, probably. But ultimately, she's saying, you've got to promise me that you'll destroy the alien when you do take it out. And of course, they're not going to do that. You know, as he said, think of all we can learn from it. In the end, she has to kill herself because any trace of the alien they can get, they'll use.
Yeah, I feel it was a good ending for Ripley's character.
I think it's great.
So, Alien Resurrection.
Who are you?
Ripley Ellen, Lieutenant First Class.
Ellen Ripley died 200 years ago. You're a thing, a construct. They grew you in a lab.
So here you ran into these things before.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I died.
Interestingly, we've discovered we have difference of opinion on this particular film.
I really like it. When I watched it for the first time, I didn't expect it to be like a comedy sort of thing. I've recently started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I can see a resemblance in the writing of it being more of a character-led story. Now, this is different for Alien, because Alien's not really a character-driven kind of franchise. It's more about the monster. But this time, we have a cast of misfits, as it were, pirates, which are suddenly all quite goofy and interesting. You end up liking them and, getting amused by their jokes. I love the guy that's in the wheelchair, and he's like,
Who are you expecting? Santa Claus?
I should probably just say the premise. So the premise of this film is quite ridiculous. Basically, after the events of Alien 3, Weyland-Yutani gets the hold of some aliens. They splice some alien DNA.
It's not Weyland-Yutani. It's not. No, wrong.
What is it?
They're the military. The company went under decades ago.
Bought out by Walmart.
The military are in charge now, baby.
The military has spliced alien DNA with Ripley's DNA, and they've made this weird thing that's got some of Ripley's memories. She basically looks like Ripley. She's like a little clone.
It's her DNA from Fury 16 when she had the alien inside of her. So you have this mixed DNA from both Ripley and the alien queen. And what they were trying to do was to perfectly replicate Ripley as she was in Fury 16 with the alien queen inside her so that they can remove the alien fetus from her and then, use it for their military weaponry division.
But also she has a psychic link with the aliens now. These pirates come in and clearly they get involved in this kind of weird plot of the military where the aliens find a way to escape. There have been experiments being done on people, as you were saying, to make more aliens, and basically, I think they want to use them as soldiers, don't they?
Yeah, they want to use them in the military.
Yeah. They break away, and then they start basically foiling that plan and making an escape.
Yeah, the pirates are there because they've smuggled in human specimens for the military to use.
Yeah.
The pirates are scumbags. They are horrible people in doing this, but it's ultimately everything goes awry immediately because of course it does. The aliens escape.
It also has two of our celebrity crushes in it. So it has Ewan's celebrity crush, which is Winona Ryder, and it has my celebrity crush of Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Hellboy.
Must be a chick thing.
So the casting is on point. It's just, I love it.
Okay, my defense of Alien Resurrection. It's a very silly film, but it has a great premise. I actually really love the idea of just cloning Ripley and creating an alien from that. But I also love the Ripley clone because she's not Ripley. She's not the Lieutenant Ripley that we knew from the previous film. Sigourney Weaver is playing a very different character, and she's this weird mix of alien and Ripley DNA. So she's basically Spider-Man in some regards, where she has super fast reflexes and super strength, which I think is just it's really goofy, but it's really fun. because there's the wonderful basketball scene. And she also has acid for blood, which is, of course, the big kind of tell. Yeah. She also has these long black fingernails, which I just think is hilarious and great. So she's part alien and part Ripley. And what I like about that, on a kind of serious thematic note, is that kind of ties the series together. The thing I really love about Alien 3 is that Ripley starts to connect more with the alien because she realizes she has one inside her. There's the wonderful scene where she says, "I'm part of the family." She starts to accept them. Like in the first film, she discovers them and she rejects it completely. In the second film, she destroys them completely. And in the third film, she accepts them. And then with Resurrection, literally, come on, the biblical themes of Alien 3, the next film is called Resurrection. But with that one, the symbiosis is complete. Ripley is now completely tied to the alien, not just because she has one inside her, but because she literally is part alien. It's almost like Carl Jung level. It's like the shadow self kind of thing. Sorry, this is going very,
it's good.
thematic.
I didn't thought like that before, actually. Well, the thing is, I'm kind of the opposite of you, and I took it the opposite. I didn't take it anywhere near as seriously as he did. I just kind of went in and just thought, this is a lot of dumb fun, this is funny. And the funny thing is, it's made by a surrealist director who is known for his dark comedy. It was Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Before he made Alien Resurrection, he made Delicatessen, which is a dark comedy film. And also, he went on after this to make Amelie, which is also, a darkly funny film. And I think that's reflected. You can tell that there's a lot of, weird cartoonishness with the mother alien, and, the weird child alien that's,
Well, Dominic Pinnon, the guy in the wheelchair, is, a regular Jean-Pierre cast member.
And there's that brilliant scene at the beginning with, the bug alien thing, and it's just so perfect, and you can tell that it's made by him.
In the special edition, I don't know why they didn't include this in the original cut, but in the special edition, it starts with this soldier or pilot or whatever. There's this little alien. It's not an alien, but it's like a fly, and it looks like the alien. And he kills it, and then he spits it out of a spitball straw thing. And it's just so adolescent and cartoony and silly. It sets the tone perfectly.
It's also worth noting that the two different versions have two very different endings. The original theatrical cut has a very weirdly upbeat, happy ending where they're going to Earth and it's so beautiful, it's all happy, yay. And then in the second film, it's horribly apocalyptic and broken and Planet of the Apes level of just sheer horror and despair. It's
Earth, man. What a shithole.
Yeah, it is literally, they blew it up, damn you. They arrived to Earth and everything is just fucked.
Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder have a cute little lesbian thing going on.
Yeah, The real reason I love this film is because Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder are basically a lesbian couple in this film. We'll go into the story of Cole, Winona Ryder's character, but they develop a relationship and they basically are just a lesbian couple in a Mad Max world at the end of the film.
It's brilliant. And one last thing as well, in regards to the director and also Joss Whedon writing, a lot of this is character driven, including Marvel.
There are some great one-liners in this. There's the bit when Ron Perlman is asking Ripley, so you ran into these things before? And she's like, yeah. And it's what did you do? I died.
Or the bit where he's saying fork. Fuck. I love that.
I'm gonna jump in because, my opinion is different. But before I say why I don't like it, I'm going to say there is a couple of things I do like. There is a scene where Ripley discovers the bodies of the failed attempts to clone her. That scene, I was that was really good. That felt really well done.
That's really messed up, because she's number 8, and there's the 7 aborted attempts.
And one's still kind of alive, and she's just please kill me. And it's just genuinely shocking.
It's really horrible.
I like the concept of Winona Ryder's character being an android who's kind of just built by machines and then just run amok. Just this movie, it just doesn't work for me. I get James's point of view that it is kind of more dumb, And I think direction and the scripts just feel at odds with each other. Like
That's what I was going to say, actually, very quickly before I finish, is that there is a mismatch between the director and Joss Whedon's writing. They're both good, but they're not fitting together.
Yeah, I didn't think they meshed. That's why it didn't really work for me. And I think also, like, I get that people argue with Aliens, the Xenomorphs aren't as scary anymore. But I think in Aliens, they're at least trying to make them menacing. In this film, you just see them, like, behind glass. We see them too much, and just... I don't think they're threatening. They're just, like, dumb monsters running around.
They're actually really funny for me in this film.
Yeah.
I love them. They're behind the glass, and there's like the three of them, and you realize that they're talking to each other. They're like hatching a plan. One of them realizes that the plan involves killing him so that they can get the acid blood so that they can like dig their way out. I don't know how they did it, but you can literally see the terror in this alien's face as he's like, wait, no, don't do it, guys, don't do it. Completely agree, though. They are not sinister in this film.
I also find most of the characters all really one note. The characters either forget one, like there's the guy in the wheelchair who speaks in a silly voice.
No offense, man. None taken.
There's Ron Perlman who's just grumpy. When I rewatched this film, I completely forgot there are characters. I just find this movie unpleasant to watch. Like, when I'm watching it, I'm just waiting for it to finish.
It's very green.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Also, I hate the hybrid. I think the hybrid is so fucking dumb.
The hybrid is my favourite part of the movie now. I'm sorry. Literally, I originally went into this agreeing with Rob that it's really dumb, and the more I've watched it, the more I've fallen in love with it.
Like I told you, you've come to the light side, Ewan.
You are a beautiful butterfly.
So the alien queen that they took out of Ripley has grown up, and she's laid eggs which have been used on the captive humans that they've smuggled in. But the alien queen itself has some kind of metamorphosis from having been part of Ripley. It's a mammalian reproduction cycle. So she literally gives birth rather than from an egg, but, you know, from her own body, and has like a swollen belly, that kind of thing. And from it, out comes one of the dumbest looking things of all time. The newborn, the alien hybrid, who's like a weird mix of alien and human. And it has like a weird skull face, and it's like pale white for some reason, and has like a long tongue. It's the dumbest looking thing.
Yeah, I think it just looks, that's what I think, it looks so stupid. I don't think it's scary, I just think it looks ridiculous.
As I watched it, I realized the aliens, they're not really meant to be the enemy in this film, at least not in the same way that they used to be. It's like I said, with Ripley kind of seeing herself in the aliens more and more, and kind of relating to them more and more. There's the wonderful scene where she falls into the alien nest, and you just see it like all writhing around her, and she's just in the center of it. And she's one of them, and she's like part of it now, and like she's accepted completely her shadow self, which again, it's this Jungian thing, basically like the bad parts of yourself, you need to learn to accept them, and that's what Ripley learns to do in this film. There's a bit when she's being carried by the alien, because she's being carried to the Queen, and she embraces it. And I love that. I love the fact that like Ripley she's gone the other side. Winona Ryder at one point is like, when Ripley kills an alien, she's like, I can't believe you did that. It's like killing one of your own. And she's like, it was in my way. But beyond that, she does care more about the aliens ultimately than she does about the humans.
I can make it all stop. What makes you think I would let you do that?
One of my biggest problems is it just feels unnecessary. It feels like Alien 3, I think, is a good ending for Ripley's character. I think my problem with this one is it just feels like 20th Century Fox see Alien franchise that's relatively lucrative, so they're just making this film to get artists in seats and make some money. So it just feels so tacked on. It's set like 200 years after, so it feels mainly disconnected from anything that happens in the last three films.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it still works. It's just in a different context now. Like, it's in a world where Ripley no longer gives a shit, which I quite like. Winona Ryder in Alien Resurrection, I think it's safe to say, for anyone who knows me, well, maybe not everyone knows this, but I have a huge crush on Winona Ryder, and that's a big plus with this film because she looks great.
She's in Stranger Things too, and you don't like that.
No, that's true. So, I like Alien Resurrection, but like Winona Ryder's a big part of why I like it. There's other reasons why I like it as well. But yeah, she plays an android, and one of the cool developments of the past 200 years is apparently there was some kind of android rebellion, which I like to think one of the bishops started that, and they started making their own androids. It's like their own kind of reproduction. So once again, we've got that androids as an evolutionary continuation of humanity. So it's great to see that like actually continuing on from the themes of the Alien series. So she plays a character called Call, and she is basically programmed to care about humans.
No human being is that humane.
And so that's the reason why she joins this pirate crew, because she realizes that Ripley and the aliens are going to be on the ship that the pirates are smuggling the humans to. So she goes there to try and assassinate Ripley and destroy the aliens.
I couldn't let them annihilate themselves. Do you understand that?
I did once. I tried to save people. It didn't work out.
But also the relationship that develops between Ripley and Paul. It's like you were saying with Aliens, James. We've gone from the point where Ripley hates androids to Ripley accepting androids to Ripley basically falling in love with an android, if we go with my lesbian reading of Alien Resurrection.
It's really
just, I really enjoy it. It's really fun. It's a really nice
One
relationship.
last phrase is that there is you were saying earlier about how there was that scene where like the android is saying like it's a magnificent specimen, and then in the second one there's the gentleman trying, well not the gentleman at all, but like the guy trying to take back an alien saying like it's the perfect being, and then in the third Alien movie there's a guy saying like it's the dragon and stuff like that. There's a scene in this movie that parodies all those moments where like this military guy's just studying this alien, just like moving its head with it, and then proceeds to make out with it through a window.
That's what I was trying to say, is that every cast member in this movie is incredibly horny. Like all of them. At the very beginning of the film, all of them are making sex references. The sexual innuendo is strong in this film.
The sight of a woman all strapped up in a chair like that just...
You don't want to play basketball, I know some other indoor sports.
How about a cup of coffee?
Anything else while your mouth's warm?
Little milk?
Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?
I can get you off. Maybe not the boat.
And of course, the Ripley clone, her like borderline, one of the first words she says is fuck.
Fork.
Fuck.
Yes. See, I can see the script. Like when I was watching the film for this, I did think some of these lines. The film had been directed a bit differently. I think it would have worked for me a bit more.
I think
I liked it, the direction.
Two gel. I personally, I think the two work well together. I think there's definitely criticisms of the kind of visuals of it, and like, I can totally see that.
I guess it's just not for me. I guess I just don't get it. But
that's fair enough. Not a lot of people didn't like it either, to be fair.
Oh no, Rob, you are literally, like
you're a minority. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not me saying it because like everyone says. I mean, I like Batman Forever, which not a lot of people seem to.
Oh yeah. No,
that's fair enough.
Batman Forever, the composer of that, did the soundtrack of Alien 3. Elliot Goldenfall, just wanted to mention. Alien 3, I think, has my favourite soundtrack, I've realised.
Aliens has my favourite soundtrack because it's done by James Horn, who did a lot of great soundtracks, because sadly he's no longer with us.
Go back to what Rob was saying about like the mismatch between directors. The thing is, the director is a surrealist and Joss Whedon is more of a like comic book writer. So
Joss Whedon was very vocal about he didn't like how this film turned out at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I couldn't care less what Joss Whedon thinks of anything. We need to end it on a very important note, which is that Sigourney Weaver actually did slam dunk that basketball into the basketball net. In that take where she's walking away from the basketball net, throws the ball backwards, and it slam dunks. It's the most fucking badass thing.
Raw, unedited, uninterrupted footage of Sigourney.
The hell are you?
I will say this. I used to think this was like the absolute bottom of the barrel for the Alien franchise. I did watch the other films that I hadn't seen. You guys are probably disagreeing, but I think I prefer Prometheus and Covenant, because those things I can at least just have on in the background and glance up at every now and again. But then I watched Alien vs Predator Requiem. After watching Alien vs Predator 2, I appreciate Resurrection a little bit more, because at least it's not as awful as Alien vs Predator Requiem.
See, here's my thing about Aliens vs Predator. I'm not really going into it here, but I just want to say, like, the reason I don't care, because I'm a bit of a Sigourney Weaver purist when it comes to these films. I kind of feel like if Ripley, or even the Ripley clone, isn't in these films, then it just doesn't interest me at all. Because I kind of believe that the Alien and Ripley, their fates are tied to each other. And I really like that as like a thematic point about the series. And I just kind of feel like nobody remembers any of the characters in Aliens vs Predator, or even like Prometheus, really. Who cares? Like, it doesn't have Ripley in them, and Ripley's the reason why the films work.
I do enjoy the first Alien vs Predator movie because there's a whole extended franchise with Alien and Predator and everything in the comic books and video games and stuff like that. They took a story from that and made a movie about it. It's not canon, like, there's no way about it, but it's just comic book fun, do you know what I mean? And I love that. But the second film upset me because they basically had the Pred alien try to eat children, and I was like, I don't like this anymore.
Oh yeah, the second film is just... It is a shit slasher film that just happens to have Alien and Predator in.
And watch Batman Dead End, because it's such a brilliant short film. It was made years ago, pre-YouTube days, and it involves Alien and Predator and Batman crossing over. And it's made by nerds, for nerds. It's very short, 8 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube for free. I love it. I'm probably going to link it below, so watch that.
You're going back to Arkham.
That wraps up the Alien quadrilogy. So yes, thank you for listening. We are on social media, on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We are at Bloobcastpod, and we also have an email address which is at Bloobcastpod, and we are also on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts. So wherever you watch us on, please leave us a rating and review. It really helps us. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it around to anyone you think might be interested, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well.
And like the vids.
Please comment on anything you'd like to hear us review, because it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we might even give you a shout out on the podcast as well.
Exactly.
Before we go, next time, sticking with science fiction, although something with more of an optimistic look at the future, we are talking about Thunderbirds, specifically the original 1960s Supermarionation show. A show I've loved since my childhood. I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited for something a bit more lighthearted. Resident Evil and then Alien has been a big, it's been quite a lot of horror themed stuff, so it would be nice to watch something a bit more light. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to colours. Anyway, yeah, take care everyone, and we'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Goodbye everyone.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Signing off.